In the previous episode, Melvin and I discussed more about his business, managing PropertyLimBrothers from the initial startup to where it is now today, and even the sustainable future plans. In this episode, we will dive more into Melvin's personal finance strategies, which includes his properties, investments, credit card, and CPF. And for our young adults audience, I will also ask Melvin how he can help you strategize your property journey so that you do not make mistakes when structuring your own property journey as well. Let's go. Okay, so that's for the business side of the question. Let's move on to what audience are really interested in their own personal property questions.
Sure.
So I watched one of your videos of your most property regret, which is, I think, one of the EM or EA or something.
Jumbo flat.
Yeah, jumbo flat.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was in your era. But how about now? Because you deal with so many younger part of the clients. What do you think is the most common property regrets that people face over the last few years, especially for young couples between 25 to 35? Like, if you want to advise someone who just step out of university, then you don't want them to make the wrong move. Then you have seen some cases of it. Can you share with our audience?
Okay. I think going back to that video that I did, my property journey, there was a 2-part series lah. So there were 2 regrets that I had. Number 1 was that I tried to time the market. I sold my first HDB. It was a resale, 4-room. I went to rent for 2 years. Then I went back and bought a resale HDB, which was a jumbo flat. Yeah, so back then, it was also the season that I was burnt out. And I was trying to build and find my footing in my first 10 years in the real estate space. So on top of this, actually, I realized as somebody in the industry, when I started my first 10 years, I didn't see myself as like a property investor. I feel that I was a self-employed, but it's still a job. It's like the downside of being a self-employed is that in Chinese we say 手停口停.
Yes.
Yeah, it's no different if I'm running a food store, a F&B. Yeah. It's no different from me operating as a one-man. Maybe I'm running, let's say I'm a doctor running a clinic. Yeah. Of course I can get a part-time doctor to come in and stuff like that, but I know that I'm the main operator. I'm the brand in the sense that if I fall sick, then the business cannot run.
Yes.
So if as a self-employed one-man salesperson, the moment I fall sick, the moment I want to go for a holiday with my kids, I will feel very worried because I cannot stop looking at my phone.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is the downside of being a self-employed, is that you don't have a system or a team to support you for some sort of balance lah. Yeah. So on the part that I didn't see myself as a property investor was because I was trying to constantly think about ways on how can I make this one-man business work as a realtor, as a salesperson, and having a good balance and not always feeling burnt out because I was like one man running here and there, meeting a client and running for viewings and stuff like that. So it was the constant stretch of time and no proper off days with my kids. And my calendar was actually flip-flop. So in the evenings when my kids were home, but I'm not at home.
Yeah,
I was meet clients.
Viewings, right?
Yeah, the weekends where all the viewings take place, but my kids are home. Yeah. So your calendar is totally flipped. And then on top of that, because of all this struggles with up and down in sales during the first 10 years, I didn't read up about real estate investing. I didn't go and learn about and really sit down and think about property investing for my own property.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to time the market. So after the Lehman Brothers crisis, I thought that the market was going to crash. So I wanted to sell, time the market, but then it didn't crash. After 6 months, the whole market escalated. Yeah. I could have went back and bought a private property, but I didn't. Then I wanted to stay safe, so I went to buy a jumbo flat. Yeah. And why was it a mistake? Firstly, I timed the market. I lose out on 2 years of pricing growth. I wasted 2 years of rental. Yep. Second mistake was that at the point of purchasing the jumbo property, if I would have bought a condo instead, compared to the time of holding until I sold the jumbo HDB flat to selling the condo, if I were to purchase the condo, this was the first opportunity cost already. Yeah. And I would have maybe see the capital appreciated 3 times more. Right. Yeah. So that was the opportunity cost, the loss in the growth of the capital. Yeah. The rationale is, of course, because which I later learned in I would say I only started seriously looking at like property investing for myself and my clients on a very strategic approach was perhaps during the last like 6 to 7 years. Yeah. So it is because we're in an environment whereby 9 out of 10 people own properties in Singapore. Once you're in a high ownership environment, if you don't own property, you lose out.
Yeah.
Why? Because everybody owns assets. If you don't own asset, you will be priced out.
Correct.
Because of the fact that so many people own assets, the transaction volume of residential assets is very fluid. So that's number one. Number two is, of course, if we compare soft and hard assets, there's this rule in economic terms is that money flows to the harder asset. Yeah. So for example, we're always trying to fight inflation. We're trying to find places to store our wealth, and you want to make sure that you can beat inflation every year. If not, your purchasing power will drop.
Yes.
So like you mentioned, you realize that property is one of the best ways to fight inflation, which is true. And then once you come into the property spectrum, as a young person that grows along, I think the first rule is not to make my mistake. It's not to time the market. Always stay in the market. If you want to switch property, you should switch without having the mindset to time it. Yeah, because once you time it, you only have 3 outcomes. One is that property prices go up. One is that property prices stay the same. One is that property price go down.
Right.
But you are trying to bet on this 33%, but you lose out on 66%. Yeah, so it's a little bit like gambling to me. But if let's say we're in another country, we are in a country where there's only 50% ownership rate, 50% of the population are renting, that is a different ballgame. But in Singapore, unfortunately, it's a high ownership environment. And because of this, I would say that, back to your question on the advice for somebody 25 to 35 is that this is the period that you have growing income power. Your age is the youngest, where you can leverage the most in terms of the tenure. Once you become older, you become 45 years old or 55 years old, the amount of mortgage you have to pay is high because your loan tenure is shortened. Although when you refinance, you can stretch the tenure, but your buying power is lesser than somebody that's younger.
Yeah.
Unless you continuously increase your income. But if let's say when you are young, you should leverage on your age. And your buying power is always increasing if let's say you do well in your profession or your job or your business. So I would say that when you are young, you shouldn't time it, and you should try your best to move up to the harder asset, which is, for example, from a HDB apartment, which is a good start because you can leverage on CPF grants. Yep. You can buy subsidized housing, BTO. That's the first good step, which I think you should get into. Then once you can, switch to a private property. Then gradually from there, you can expand your portfolio with the goal that you need to have like cut-off age. So the cut-off age is the time that you need to divest some of your assets. Then you can go into a phase whereby you can really like think about your next phase in life. Yeah. So I've seen also like customers that hold a lot of properties until the end, and their children fight over the properties. Yeah. And they didn't get to enjoy their fruits also.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think that's the later part of legacy planning. Yeah.
Okay, so coming back to this question, right? 25 to 35, the other challenge is that they just started out on their careers. So let's say if you take a medium fresh grad pay of 4.2k, so what is the ideal property route for these people then? Then because if 4.2k, hardly you can afford even a 1-bedder condo.
Yeah.
Then what's the plan for them?
Of course, in Singapore, the structure is that government is promoting family nucleus to be formed. So the fastest route is, of course, for a couple, they have the luxury and the ability to kickstart faster. Yeah, because a couple can either go for a BTO or resale HDB. Yeah. So if both are drawing 4.something, they can easily afford a HDB apartment. And I think for that calibration, there also needs to be a little bit more detailed planning. For example, if they are not so lucky to get a BTO, they have really balloted for many years, they should really consider a HDB resale. And now the policy has shifted last year that now we have standard plus and prime housing. So the MOP has lengthened to 10 years for properties that are prime or properties that are near to MRT station. So I think that with this shift, it's very clear that the government is telling us that the so-called lottery effect might be gone for the new class of BTOs.
This video has no sponsor, but you can support me by clicking on this Interactive Brokers link, especially when they are one of the most competitive brokerages to offer Ireland domiciled ETFs on London Stock Exchange. And also, Interactive Brokers offer the best exchange rates for foreign currency. So get your IBKR account by clicking on this link right here.
So if let's say you're hoping to get an MRT station BTO now, then you have to maybe ballot first for about 1 to 2 years, construction period 4 years, then your MOP 10 years. That means you will need to so-called invest 16 years. Yeah, so for somebody that is, let's say, like planning for this, then maybe it will be good to really plan forward to see like, okay, do you want to use property as a hedge against inflation to grow your portfolio? Right. Because if you want, then you need to calculate your age also. Like let's say if you come in at 25, after 16 years, you'll be 41. Yeah, then what is the balance years that you can do property investing, right? So another route will be, okay, I will still need to use HDB as my home plus a kickstart into property first. Maybe I can consider resale HDB. Maybe I don't have to buy too expensive. I don't need to go for 800,000-900,000, right? I can go for maybe a smaller one, but I try to go nearer to an MRT because I can have a few calibration. Maybe after 5 years, I can rent it out. I can buy a private property. We call it the 1+1 plan. There's a structure you need to do for ownership, right?
Occupier and essential.
Yes, and maybe I can leverage on the grant because if our income is not high, maybe we can qualify for 80,000, 100,000 near parents grant and stuff like that. It is actually technically a free injection into your CPF. Yeah, you don't have to return it as long as you don't touch BTO again.
Yeah, brings me to this interesting point. I've been trying to defend this granting falsehoods all over the internet, but I guess people are more aware of this really.
Yes. I mean, like, you have to pay back in terms of levy if you touch another subsidized housing, but if you just continue to buy resale, you buy private property, you don't have to return the CPF. Right. So it's a instant injection for down payment. Yeah. So I think if you look at this approach, it is basically a shortening to just 5 years. After 5 years, you are still young. You are 30 years old. You can plan your next phase.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think there are options. It's just that a lot of options, unfortunately, are catered to married couples. For singles, unfortunately, is that they have to wait until 35. Of course, there's an option to buy with a friend, a private property. That also depends on their living preferences and need, or are they just buying for investment and things like that. But if let's say the single is not a high income earner and they cannot buy a private property, then unfortunately they have to wait until 35. Yeah. But I've also seen a lot of clients utilize this strategy, which is very good. And I think it's like once they're 35, they buy a 4-room HDB or 5-room HDB near to the MRT. They stay in the master room. They rent out the other 2 rooms. So there are a lot of calibrations that you can do.
Yeah. Okay. So coming back, right? Because you're so big onto property education and sharing, do you even look at other forms of asset class vehicles like equities?
So I used to invest in because my first 10 years I didn't have time to look at investment. So last time, my first 10 years as a realtor, I just buy STI ETF only. Yeah. And I didn't have time to study anything else because I was like so fixated about sales, how to do sales and all that kind of stuff. It's only after I started PLB 2016-17 when I started reading up a lot, then I started to look at other form of investment other than property investment.
Okay.
Yeah. So I dabble a little bit into like tech stocks in the past and stuff like that. But now, basically, I just keep it very simple. It's just real estate investing. Plus, I believe in the notion of Bitcoin. Yeah. So for me, it's just very clear. It's just these 2 sort of investment at this season.
So no equities for now.
No equities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So between these 3 forms of asset vehicles, like let's say property investing, business, and also maybe your crypto investments. Which ones are you more excited and interested, and you are willing to give up the other 2 just for this?
Where you give idea to? Actually, all three are very important.
Yes, which is why I asked this question.
It's a very tough question, but I don't think. I think all three are interlinked. Why is it interlinked? Is because real estate is, of course, like my passion. So it's interlinked in the sense that my business is real estate, and because I believe in real estate, I also invest in real estate. Yeah. So business to me, it has evolved to a stage that I also see it as a way for me to grow people, and also like it's a place for me to create content, to educate, and then also to share this passion. It becomes like a vehicle whereby I can look at this business as a platform to help other people, like to help owners to position their homes. Then through this work, I can grow people within this company.
Okay.
Yeah. Then property investing, I believe it strongly. For Bitcoin, I believe in the next 10 to 20 years, it's going to be an accelerator for families to store their wealth. And it's basically going to replace gold. It's a digital gold. There's nobody controlling it. It's decentralized. It is unconfiscatable. Basically, there's a fixed quantity. I believe it will be a new trend whereby people can build their down payment for real estate through this vehicle. So, to answer the question is, I cannot give up the new one a bit. Unfortunately, it's all interlinked to me lah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. Okay, so we come to the final segment because I'm going to ask some more personal questions regarding to my channel.
Sure.
Because my channel is very big on CPF and credit cards. Because maybe other people never interviewed you on this before. What is your take on CPF strategies? Like, do you really look at it on what is your knowledge about the CPF?
Okay, CPF strategy for us is that because CPF forms a very big part when we do financial calculation for clients, I feel that it is really like a very fortunate benefit we have in Singapore. Without this component, I don't think a lot of people can own properties. Yeah, it's like if the government didn't plan for this, I don't think we can be a high ownership country. And I think it's so useful. We're so lucky that we have this compared to a lot of citizens in other countries. So I see it as a enhancement. It's an accelerator tool, which naturally most people use it for their first purchase and subsequent purchase. I've seen clients with a lot of CPF over the years as they do well in their career. When they buy, sell properties, like a few rounds, it can grow up to a huge amount, which easily fulfills the down payment. Yeah, so their cash component for the next private property or land property becomes very low. So I've seen that power that it has. And to me, I think I'm not an expert in like yourself to think about the strategies for investment and equities stuff like that, but I've seen it grow through my clients through their property purchases. So they're using real estate and they're using CPF as an enhancement into it. Yeah, but of course, over the years, there are strategies. Is like some clients will prefer to put cash in and then store CPF to pay for the monthly installment and stuff. There are different strategies, but it's always a thinking about which one can they actually earn more in terms of yield. Yeah, so if their cash is outside and CPF is inside, as long as their cash can generate more than what CPF can give them, then they will rather use CPF for the property.
Right.
Yeah, so it's always that opportunity cost. Yeah.
Yeah, but I believe that focus is more on OA. How about, let's talk about the SA and MA. Do you top up your CPF because of whatever reasons?
Oh, because I've been a self-employed for the longest time. My CPF is very little.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't top up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't lah.
Yeah, because I don't get to enjoy that my first 10 over years of having an employer topping up myself. So as a self-employed, you have to settle your MediSave yourself. Yeah, you have to. But I don't self-top up. Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to the next thing. Maybe no one asked you on credit cards before. Are you you're a single credit card person, or you have do you even look at credit card strategies?
Okay.
Is that even worth your time?
I don't look at credit card strategies. Okay. I have multiple credit cards. And of course, I just use it very simply. Petrol amount.
Which card?
Mix. I have like the Vantage card.
Vantage. DBS Vantage.
Citibank Premier. SO. DBS. Because I go to SO. So I just use it for my daily needs.
Okay. But do you accumulate miles or cashback kind of thing?
Yes. But I don't study like this month which miles is better. So I lose out a lot on this. Yeah, I don't study like, okay, now for this year you should switch to this card because the miles are more and stuff. So sometimes I just like go for cashback, or maybe like if I go on a flight with my family, then I just exchange.
Yeah. But actually, really, for someone like you, a DBS Vantage card is good enough, lah.
Okay.
Because like you said, you don't have the time to go through all the nitty-gritty terms and conditions, which the banks have an edge over you. So get the simplest card, like unlimited rewards, and you can. Vantage card is pretty good.
Okay.
I
Thanks.
think you know of the benefits, right?
Roughly lah. Yeah. Maybe I'll call you.
Okay. Great stuff. Okay. So thank you, Melvin, for coming to my show. I think it was a great sharing. We have a lot of different ideas, not just property business, but also we know of Melvin's CPF and credit card strategy, right? Yeah. So if you really want to connect with Melvin, where can you find you?
Yeah, I can go to PropertyLimBrothers YouTube channel. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We also have Xiaohongshu as well. We also have three other YouTube channel. We have a PropertyLimBrothers Chinese channel, NOTG plus PLB Insights.
Yeah. Great stuff. Thank you.
All right.